Stephen. Thank you, Creative Mornings, for having me. Yes, as Stephen said, I am Lindsay Harle-Kadatz, and I am the owner of the creative business, The Right Harle. And I have just entered my 6th year in business. But I am also someone who has been diagnosed and lives with depression and anxiety day in and day out. So what I've had to do over the last little while when I was diagnosed was I had to find a more simplified way of how to explain what it was that I was going through with my depression to those that I loved who didn't understand it in a way that they could connect to. So I ended up drawing parallels between depression and constipation, and surprisingly, my husband started to understand very well what I was going through. So it was fantastic. That said, though, what I'm going to be talking about today is unleashing your anxiety. So how do you work with the mind that you have to enhance your creative business? And whether or not you've been diagnosed with some sort of mental health hurdle that you have to get over, I'm sure that at some point anybody here has been in a state of overwhelm or an anxious state. And so what I'm going to do today is just sort of talk through some of those 6 mental prune juice lessons that I often have to drink to be able to get my own mental flow back, to be able to run my creative business effectively and keep some happy clients. So that said, today, let's start drinking some mental prune juice. So prune juice lesson number 1 is try a different stall for a different perspective. So what I'm going to ask you is if in those moments when you're feeling anxious and overwhelmed and just, I'm sure you can relate to that word, is just stop and take a moment and think, what is this tightness about? What is all this heaviness that I'm carrying about? Is it actually that I'm anxious, or is there something else? Do I just need to change how I'm approaching something? And so I'm just going to give you 2 little examples here on what I'm specifically talking about with trying a different stall. So the first one is when your brain is overwhelmed, when there's so much noise, when you have so many things that you're trying to sort through, whether it be a project, emails, texts, calls, whatever, or trying to tap into that perfect creative moment to find the perfect pun, you sometimes can't sort through everything that's going on. So when that's happening, you need to stop, just walk away, because you're not going to do anything productive, so you need to do something that will clear your head. When I get in this state, I go and I build a puzzle because I love them. I know I'm good at them. It's still creative to me, but it allows me to focus on something with an end goal. And while I'm building this and not thinking about my work, not thinking about what's overwhelming me, my subconscious sorts through all the different tasks that I'm trying to sort through. So when I finish the puzzle, or a portion of the puzzle, or maybe just the outline, I'm able to go and either do a small email or take some small step of all the overwhelm to just start moving forward. The next story I'm going to tell you, though, is very much about changing your perspective when it comes to taking care of yourself. So as I said, I have depression, so I'm on antidepressants. And at one point, I did not want to be on them anymore because I had this strong belief that if I'm on them, it means I'm broken. So when I'm off them, I'm fixed. And so as I was on these drugs and I'm trying to wean them off, every day on my phone, the alarm would go off to remind me to take my meds. And it would say, take your meds. And I just would be angry and frustrated every time that alarm would go off. And then as I was trying to wean myself off, on my Facebook feed, something a friend of mine had posted. And it made me stop in my tracks and think. And what she had posted was, I am so excited every day when my alarm goes off, telling me to take my antidepressants by saying, get your brain right. And I stopped. And I thought, well, that's different. That's a totally different way of looking at my meds, my medication. Rather than looking at these medication as something that I have to take to fix myself, why am I not looking at it as something to fuel myself, to feed my brain, to give my brain the food it needs to be the optimal self? And as soon as I saw that, I immediately went into my phone, changed what it said, and it says, feed your brain with a happy face. Now, so every day at 6 o'clock when that alarm goes off, I'm excited because I've been constantly rewiring myself to view my meds now as medicine. No, pardon me, as fuel. as food for my brain, for food for me to be my most optimal self. And it's just like eating well, exercising, it's the medication, it's fuel. That's all it is, a different stall. So, my next mental prune juice lesson is find a flesh buddy who has the best prunes. So, creativity can be lonely. Running your own business can be lonely. Doing both together can be very isolating, particularly when you're in that state of depression or anxiety or just trying to move through something. And it's so crucial in those moments that you have somebody you can reach out to that is supportive and objective. So my flesh buddy is not my husband, because he is not objective in any way, shape, or form. My flesh buddy is actually my business wife. So she and I, we don't run our businesses together, but we're growing them side by side. And so we rely on one another to bounce ideas off of each other, to hold each other accountable, to tell each other when we're letting our emotions a little bit into our business conversations a little bit too much. So in working with her over that, I knew that she will call me out if I'm not doing a smart decision. And so when I knew I wanted to start weaning myself off, I let her know. And I asked her, and I gave her permission to call me out if in our conversations something wasn't quite Lindsay. And in particular, one moment was we were having this impassioned conversation, I'll say, just she and I, and it was about a client project, and I got a little too emotional, and I'll be very honest about that. And she stopped me at one point. She's like, Lindsay, I love this passion, love it, but are you spiraling, perhaps? And because I had given her that permission, she felt okay to do that, to reach out to me and say, hold on, something's not right. And it was a wake-up call for me. And while in that moment I said, no, I'm totally fine. Things are good. 2 days later, I had a very bad episode. And it was her calling me out and making me start to recognize that maybe something's not right and I need to go and get some more help. And because of that, I went and I built more support systems, and I've been able to get back on track, and things were fantastic since then. My flesh buddy is fantastic. So, your next lesson is ask for toilet paper, as others may actually have it. So what I mean by this is let your client peek under, maybe not peek under the stall, but put their hand under the stall every now and then and hand you what you need. Ask them exactly for what you need to best support them. So yeah, ask them exactly for what you need so that you can support them, but so that they can support you in supporting them. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. So this actually comes down to being a little bit vulnerable and just having maybe 5-6 seconds of real gutsiness in opening up to your clients. And so when I was having a bit of a spiral moment in which I knew I wouldn't be able to produce the best quality of work for my clients, I was actually in the middle of 2 very large web projects. And I had to get very honest, very fast with my clients. And I had to reach out to them, and I had to ask, I need an extension for about 2 weeks. But you can't just say, hey, I need an extension for 2 weeks, and that's okay, right? And you can't even just say, hey, I need an extension for 2 weeks because I have a mental health issue. That doesn't really do anything. When I reached out to the clients, though, I said, hey, here's what's going on. I'm not able to do very good work right now. It's horrible quality. Here's my solution for going forward, though, and here's how my plan of attack. And so when I laid it out that way for them, it built more trust in our relationship. It demonstrated commitment, my commitment to ensuring that they received the best quality content that they could have. But it also showed my commitment to the project within the boundaries that I was actually able to do at that moment in time. And it built a lot more transparency between us because they also felt more open to tell me what was going on with them, which ultimately feeds into their content. So that was quite helpful. And both projects were finished within the new plan. Both clients were very happy, and I have worked with both of them since. So it helps to be very vulnerable, but it's scary sometimes. But you won't get your toilet paper if you do not ask for it. So fourth prune juice lesson is right on the stall door to communicate if you have to. Okay, so I am always going to say, if something with yourself is going to impact a client project in any manner, pick up that phone and have a conversation with them. Be open, be honest, be prepared to not have a very happy conversation, but pick up that phone and call them. Unfortunately, sometimes having a conversation is not that easy. So for example, my depression actually takes on a very physical form. So when I'm in one of my lower dips, I get what is known as tinnitus, so very loud ringing in my ears and horrible stutter, to the point of not really even being able to get out a full sentence. And it's just because everything's going way too fast and I can't talk. And that makes it very difficult to have a very open, honest, and a very clear conversation with your client about your go-forward plan, because let's face it, you can't speak. So what I have to do in those moments is I do have to communicate via email. Here's how it's going to impact your business. Again, though, here's my plan for going forward. And because I know when my stutter will start to clear, because of the routines that I've had to do during these dips to get myself out of them, I know that within a few days, I'll be able to actually have a conversation. I'll still have my stutter, but it won't be nearly what it was. So I say, can we schedule a call on this day so we can talk about this plan? And I have never once had a client say, no, we're going to talk about this now, because it's not effective. So it's how are you going to have the most effective communication with your client? And again, if you have to write on the stall door, do it, because it's better than no communication whatsoever. Now, my fifth mental prune juice lesson that gets good flow sometimes is that it's okay to flush and leave so long as you fully flush. So what I mean by this is sometimes we do not know how much our brains can handle until we've said yes to too many things. And it's different for everybody. So what I can handle might not be a lot compared to others. But it's important that you understand this. How much can you handle? And if at any point you realize, oh my golly, I've taken on way too much and I'm not going to be able to do this, you have to walk away. But make sure you've tied up all your loose ends. So during one moment of my lovely spiral, I was actually about to sign on a new client for one of my favorite projects, very lucrative as well. But as I was drawing up the services agreement, I was like, I can't do this. I want to do it. I can't. It's not going to be good work. I am not going to be able to ask the quality questions of this client to get the work done. And she's going to be not happy. It's going to hurt my reputation. It's going to hurt her website reputation as well if it's poor content. So what do? Again, I had to reach out to her and let her know what was going on. But I had to present options of how to move forward. So one of those options was, we can push this off for a couple of weeks and then revisit it at that point when I'm able to start working again, which I knew she wouldn't go for simply because of the timeline, but I simply wasn't going to say, sorry, here you go, bye, go away. And then the other option I said was, I know a few other writers who do have openings in their calendar right now. Would you like an introduction? And that's the route that she went. And that's awesome. To me, that's fantastic, because at the end of the day, the client got what she wanted. I was able to help another writer. And then I was also able to help myself and put myself in a better position to get over this hurdle, to heal, and keep going, to flush again. So that's that. So again, it's okay to flush and leave. Just make sure you fully flush. So the last mental prune juice lesson that I am learning every day still is trust your gut to avoid explosive anxiety. So we have all been in those moments where our gut is percolating. We know something's off. We need to trust this, because if you push this percolation down, you are going to get an explosion later on at the most inconvenient moment, and you do not want that to happen because it's embarrassing. No experience on this side with that. So what you need to do is when you start to feel That was in my script. No, it wasn't. When you start to feel overwhelmed and anxious and things are going out of control, stop. Don't try and ignore this feeling. This feeling is there for a reason, and it's telling you something. And what you need to do is you need to stop. You need to accept that, okay, hey, I'm in a state of overwhelm. I might be in over my head. And hold that feeling for a bit. Feel it. But then move through it. You don't stay in that. And that's why, and that's why it's so important to look at the other mental prune juice lessons, because that's then what helps to start you move through it. So reach out to a flesh buddy, your own flesh buddy, and just talk. Here's where I'm at. How do I start going? And someone who's objective can help you detach from the emotion that you're just totally in at that moment. Pardon me. And so I know when I start to get those feelings, and this is something that I've started to clue into actually over the past year, when my hands start to sweat as soon as an email comes in, when I get a text, not just from a client, but from my friends, from my husband, from people who should not be inducing anxiety in my body, when I get the sweat stash going all the time, it's just, and most importantly for me, is when I stop seeing humor in things. When I can't find a pun in something, that is actually a huge indicator to me now that something might not be there because I'm not looking for the funny anymore. So I need to stop, and then I need to go back, review, and do my own mental prune juice lessons. And then I don't have explosive anxiety over people, and it's a lot better. So those are my lessons of prune juice for your brain. But before we finish today, I just want to ask you all, what mental prune juice do you need to drink in order for your brain to function at its most optimal? Thank you.